Hey, Mayor, I just started live streaming and we're ready to go when you are.
Great. Um, Thank you. Sorry, I was coming out of another meeting. I'd like to call this ad hoc budget committee meeting to order and ask you to join me for just a moment of silent prayer. Amen. Thank you so much. So we're going to continue our review of departmental requests. Apparently, we got 3 of them today: recreation, IT, and public service. And I guess those department heads are here. Amy, you want to open with anything or move right to Lori?
I think we can move right to Lori, which I'm gonna
Okay.
stop sharing so I can share a different screen. Sorry, give me 1 second, sorry.
Okay. Lori, how you doing?
I'm great, Mayor. How are y'all today?
We're doing terrific. Thanks for being with us and for your good work. And we're looking forward to having a robust 2024 in the recreation department. We're hoping to, in fact, pass a Parks Rec bond that will help in that regard as well. But this is our normal, regular operating budget. Tell us what you're looking for, new or different for next year.
Happy to, Mayor. Thank you. What Amy's put up is kind of the overview listed by priorities of the increases that was requested from our department this year. We have
Can I ask you, Lori, before you get started, and this apply IT and public service as well, if you got something like under $5,000, unless it's something really noteworthy about it, let's just kind of stick to the bigger ticket items.
Absolutely. Then my report part won't take very long. So, Mayor, as you all know, and council members, recreation has always run a pretty lean budget. The majority of our funding has been caught up in staffing because we need people to interact with our residents and to do programs. I'm very appreciative, as is everyone in our department, for the financial increases you all help to provide to everyone for hourly rates and for benefits. And so it has helped us. We're still not finding part-time workers, but we are finding full-time workers. And so that's been a great bonus and we appreciate that. So really what I've asked for have all been very easy things. I've worked with my budget analyst. I'd like to thank Jeg and Andrew for their help. Number one list is at $55,000, which is an increase, and that is to do a lift on all of the clay courts at Maybank Tennis Center. We've not done this scheduled lift for 2 years now. And obviously we should probably do one every 12 months, but we've been unable to because of the lack of funding. So that is probably the biggest divisional ask of any of them. Those courts do get a lot of play. You all funded LED lights this past year, so we've got a lot of people using them. So we do need to get those courts done. All of my other requests are pretty small. You might notice in aquatics, there's the seasonal salaries back into our line item for staffing versus being professional and service contract. We will not be contracting next year with USA Management for seasonal lifeguards. We feel like we have weathered the storm and are ready to start training and putting our own lifeguards back out at all of our pools and managing programs in that way. We were glad we did it this year, but we ended up filling a lot of gaps with our own city staff. So we're going to take that back over next year. We've looked for some money back in travel and training in our swim team and our gymnastics, and that is not for city staff to travel for conferences. That's to travel with our athletes when they go to competitions. So that's the requirement in both swimming and in gymnastics, that you have to have certified coaches travel with your athletes. So that money is looking to put that back where it was prior to COVID. And then the rest of our things are going to be things like adding things to our community programs. Those are the programs that happen at our 11 parks across the downtown, West Ashley and James Island, where we service neighborhood community parks. We've asked for some additional equipment money so that we can better outfit those buildings to provide for the children. We've also asked for some additional money for special events, for those.
Lori, I'm
Yes,
sorry. Councilmember Shealy had his hand up.
I'm sorry, I couldn't see that. Hey, Councilmember Shealy.
That's okay, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to ask about the contract for lifeguards that we have now and the increase that we're asking in hours. Is that pretty much a wash?
That's a great question, Councilmember Shealy, and yes, it will be a wash. We did ask for a few extra dollars. I think we can probably be open a few more hours to service our residents. As you recall, we were able to do swim lessons this summer, and we're doing swim lessons right now at MLK Pool downtown. And we still have WL Stevens Pool open 5 days a week right now as well with that water heated. So yes, it will be a wash. It's just going to move it back into personnel versus 52206, which is the contracted folks.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Laurie, while you're on that topic,
Yes, sir.
it occurs to me that with the increase in temperatures that we're seeing, it kind of opens the opportunity to lengthen our season, if you will, the length of the time that we leave the seasonal pools open. Maybe we open them a little earlier than we used to and keep them open a little later than Labor Day or whenever, you know, historically we've closed them because it's just hotter out. It's you know, we got a longer season available to us, and just due to the ambient temperature. Is that something that we could reasonably add to the budget without you're breaking your bank?
Well, we couldn't do it with the funding that's here now. We'd have to have some additional seasonal money for that because it would require having lifeguards for a longer length of time. I will tell you, we've spent a good deal of time working with 16 and 17-year-old lifeguards this past year and preparing them for the future. I think that is probably the future of lifeguards, is we're going to be hiring younger folks for that. We just have to work around their schools. Sometimes that's easier to do though than college kids who don't get to us until mid-May and then leave in the beginning of August to go back to college. So I think we could certainly look in that, Mayor, but that would require some additional dollars to keep our summer pools open them earlier and keep them open longer.
Right. Councilmember Gregory?
Hello?
Hey,
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Gregory.
Gregory?
Yeah, mine's a technical question. I can't figure out how to turn this iPad volume up. Can somebody tell me?
I can hear you fine now.
We can
But I
hear
can
you.
I can hardly hear you guys.
There's a little button on top, 2 buttons on top. You should be
On
able-
the top, got it. See it, the plus and minus. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Don't laugh. Y'all will get here.
I'm glad Wes was on the line because I couldn't have helped you with that, Councilmember Gregory. I don't do IT, so.
I
So,
appreciate you,
Laurie-
Wes. Thank you. I
Amen.
got it. Thanks.
Laurie,
Yes,
just to follow up, do estimate, like, for example, if we kept the 2 seasonal pools open for an extra 2 weeks or 4 weeks, just how much that would mean to us, how much extra money we'd have to sink into it.
I can do that, sir. I'll be glad to do that, and I'll get that to Amy and Jag too, so that y'all can see what that would look like.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And then, you know, mayors, I kind of go down the list. You told me not to bother with small items, so I won't, but most of everything that we've asked for have been additional supplies at and keeping up with the cost of supplies for uniforms and clothing and protective gear and cleaning supplies and rec supplies at St. Julian, at our community park houses. If you want to keep scrolling, Amy, that'll be great. We've also asked for some funding at Shaw Community Center. Now, one of the things I want to say about Shaw is that we are scheduled for some renovations, Mayor, as you're aware, at Shaw Community Center. I don't want to purchase things for Shaw and then have them in storage. So we probably are going to ask to roll over some 23 money into 24. But we need to go in with those renovations and put in new basketball goals, new games, new equipment, new sports equipment and supplies for that center. So there is some money being asked for there. You might notice under Bees Landing and James Island, where it says new program. So we're going to change the way we do summer camps at those two sites. We're still going to have an all-day summer camp for a smaller number of kids, but we're going to also do half-day camps through contracted instructors to serve more children. I think most of you all, I know you have, Mayor, and I'm sure some of you have as well, sir, heard from residents who say they want to get into our summer camp program and they can't get in. We just have a finite amount of space. So we've been running this hybrid program of an all-day camp and then half-day camps that are specialty camps. We've been doing this at Daniel Allen Rec Center since we've opened the doors, and it's been extremely well received. And we're able to service more children just because we can fit them in and out of the building. So we're going to try that at Bees Landing and James Island this year. And I see Councilmember Shealy's got his hand up.
Well, I just wanted to ask about those half-day camps. Will there be an increase in revenue because we're doing 2 camps instead of 1 there?
That's exactly right. We will see an increase in revenue. Number one, we will not have to hire all the seasonal staff for summer camps that we normally do. We'll have less seasonal employees doing that job, and we'll be using some service contract folks who will have to prepare their own staffing. So yes, we will have an increase in revenue. We're not necessarily doing it, Councilmember Shealy, for increased revenue. We're doing it to serve more children. Because right now I can't take more than 60 kids a week at James Island or at Bees Landing. If we were to have weather emergency or something, I can't get more kids than that. If it rained all week, I can't get them in the building. So doing it this way, we'll be able to access more of the inside and outside space, still provide an all-day camp for some of those parents that are looking for that, but then half-day experiences as well.
Yeah, I mean, I asked just in case, we come down to the end of the year, we're looking at cutting budgets or whatever. This is certainly something we don't want to cut because it's actually generating.
This would not be one you'd want to cut because it will show a decrease in expenses for seasonal staffing, and it will show an increase in revenue. So that would not be one you'd want to cut. So we've got some increase in some part-time hours under our Courting Kids program for salaries under tennis. And as well as some overtime to handle some of our growing programs. We've got more revenue coming in than we've ever had in tennis before, and we will exceed our revenue expectations in 23. So I think that those programs will continue to grow, but I need staff to help have those buildings open and have programs being taught. And then Amy, if you could scroll up a little more. Yes, sir, Councilmember Waring.
How you doing? Thank you.
Yes,
when you say revenue on the tennis, does that include pickleball?
Well, that's a great question. So we basically do not make money off of pickleball right now, Councilmember Waring. We have those courts over at the Waring Senior Center. That money is made, but the other pickleball that we basically offer indoors in our gymnasiums during the winter months, we do let people play pickleball for $2 a person, but the amount of money we make off of pickleball is very small. Okay. This is all of our tennis program. These are folks that join our 2 tennis centers to play in USTA leagues. These are people that are taking private and clinic lessons. I look as we build our pickleball center over at Park Shore and have 12 courts. We probably could have a pickleball instructor there one day that could be taking lessons and they could teach people to play, and we would have a revenue stream for pickleball. But right now we don't have one.
The one reason I asked that was, maybe you saw it too. I think it was in yesterday's, maybe the day before's paper, where an indoor pickleball facility is being opened up in Mount Pleasant. And I think that's a private concern, so I know it's got to be revenue driven. Yeah,
it is. So that one is called Crush Yard, and it's opening. It's going into the old Palmetto gun shop in Mount Pleasant. They're also going to be selling adult beverages and wings and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Money. And there's going to be one in North Charleston is going to be opening soon too. It's called the Pickle Bar, and it's going to be a private driven thing as well. So there's that will be a couple of groups that are out there doing it. We've seen our friends over at LTP DI that run the Credit One tournament. They're going to be adding some more pickleball courts over to their area so that they can take care of more members. So there is certainly a growing demand for pickleball.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I watched 28 people playing this morning, having a great time, and they all look like they were retirees who had found something fun to do with their morning. So
Right. Don't we have a proposal, and it may be later on down here, to add some courts to James Island, pickleball courts to James Island?
I did ask for 2 pickleball courts to be added to Harborview Fort Johnson. They're at where the traffic circle's been built right there. I think that's a real good place. It's across the street from a cemetery.
I know where it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right
And
across
we
from
had left
Cleveland.
some land vacant there for some additional tennis courts, but at this point, I think we need to turn our attention to adding some pickleball courts over there for James Island. There's only the courts that are over at Thomas Johnson now, and then of course the Low Country Senior Center I think is going to build 2 of their own, but for 40,000 people, that's not enough pickleball courts.
I hear you. How much does it cost to do a pickleball court?
Well, you can get 1 pickleball court for every 4 pickleball courts for every 1 tennis court. So that's somewhere going to be in the neighborhood of $50,000, depending on lighting. It's very social. It moves very quickly though, and you can get a lot of people in and out. The problem with Charleston is we also are still a very tennis strong community. A lot of places across the nation, people aren't playing tennis anymore. So they're just turning pickleball courts from tennis courts. Here in Charleston, as y'all remember from our May meeting, we had the folks from LCTA. Our tennis leagues are some of the biggest in the United States of America for our size city. So we've got a growing tennis and pickleball community.
That's great. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And so the rest of the things that I had were pretty small as well. We've asked for some overtime to go back into our budget to work. You'll see Daniel Island, there is a request to add 1 seasonal person to help oversee all of our camps out there. That would kind of alleviate our staff having to do that so they could continue to run the building as well. But this continues to be a very lean budget compared to how many residents we currently serve. There's about 7,000 children right now playing youth sports across our area this fall. And it's incredible how many good things are going on in the city that you all have and that we work with, and we want to continue to offer our residents everything we possibly can. So I didn't ask for anything without lots of planning and foresight, and really our citizens are asking and looking for things to do, and our rec department is on that list. As a matter of fact, anybody's looking for something to do on Saturday, we're having our Huck Finn Fishing Festival out at Colonial Lake. We've got a fun day planned for that. So it's just a different kind of activity, but I think everything that gets offered in the city is done at a low cost, and it's intended to make it reasonable and accessible for all of our residents. I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes, Councilmember Waring.
I tell you, I have to give compliments to everybody on Stony Field. Saturday, I have a 9-year-old grandson that plays Pee Wee football. He lives on James Island, right across from Clearview comes to Harborview Road, right by that park you were talking about. And Stony Field looks absolutely wonderful. I had been there when the carpet was being put down, the artificial turf was being put down, but I had been there for a function until Saturday. And to see all those teams rotating through and the parents and all of that, and just thinking that Stony Field once, had discussions on being torn down, it's got like a new life over there right now. It's just great. If you were queen for a day, and you don't have to prove it to any of us, you always have come through with a lean budget. But if you were queen for a day, what did you wish you had that you did not ask for in this budget?
Honestly, right now, most of our requests, I feel like if you all look at this and honor it, you're going to see it. Most of my needs come in, Councilmember Waring, in between what is recreation and what is parks. So a lot of times people come to me and they talk to me about recreation, and then what they really are talking to me about a facility. And the example you just used about Stony Field is a great one. So people would say, oh, your football program's great for your little kids, but Stony Field's just, it holds water. It's always wet. It's whatever. Well, if you look at this place now that we've given our children and we've given Burke High School an opportunity to play, that's what those capital project dollars do. So the addition of pickleball courts will allow our residents to do more. If we can get that bond to pass in November, the referendum, getting that new W.L. Stevens pool paid for, those are the things that you are going to see the dividends come in for your city and your residents, because we can take a little bit of money and we can make a great program and we can give you something to do and your family to do, but you have to have some facilities that have been maintained and kept up. And that's why the number one request on there was Maybank Tennis Center. We've got the only clay courts owned by a public agency on this side of the river. Mount Pleasant's got 4 courts on their side. I'll put ours up against theirs any day of the week. But if we're going to keep 5 courts, clay courts up for people to be able to use at a nominal fee, we've got to spend money on them. And so that deferred maintenance is really important to this department and being able to do a few things like that. So I have tried to work with Jason and in my list. I've asked for some fencing, the pickleball courts. I mean, those kind of things. I've asked for us to add some additional lighting at West Ashley Park so that it's a little bit more well lit. Just some things like that will make all the difference in the world in the experience that the citizens, the kids, the moms and dads, the grandmothers and grandfathers have when they go to those games in those parks.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question of Councilman Shealy. He had a couple of years ago, this is during COVID, I think, we looked at some property down, kind of like down behind the Hardys, off of St. Andrew, off of 61.
Woodland, oh shoot, I can't think of the name of the road now. Back in Church Creek subdivision.
Correct.
You know what I'm talking about.
Did the city ever get that property? Did we own that?
We own that property with Greenbelt funds. We just haven't done anything with it. Now some of that property is a wet area, so I think we're somewhat limited on what we can do. Lori or Jason may be able to answer that better than I can, but it is a nice piece of property that we could certainly use that we own with Greenbelt funds.
But it's a project for another year, then, if I'm hearing you correct.
Probably so. I mean, I would love to see it developed, hopefully, soon.
Okay.
Councilmember Shealy, your friend, Mr. Bart Altman would like to see you put some disc golf courses, some other places, and that's one of them he's interested in as well. So those are absolutely the kind of things that we could do in a parcel like that would bring use in and be well received.
Thank you. And I appreciate you mentioning, I took my hand down, but I was going to ask about the lighting around West Ashley Park. It's certainly important. All of our parks are safe and West Ashley Park is safe, but this time of year through about February, when it's darker outside and we still have activities going on in the park, with it kind of being a different park, with it being wooded and dark in some areas, it's certainly important for us to have good lighting there. So I appreciate you mentioning that, and that Jason would be taking care of that on his end, I guess.
I've asked for that. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, Laurie, at the corner of Line and President, there used to be either practice tennis courts or tennis courts. I mean, this has been years ago. I mean, the corner still sort of stands with nothing on it. And I think I brought this up some time ago. Is there any discussion or plans to do anything with that corner, Line and President? Right at the corner, there used to be the tennis courts or practice tennis court wall or something used to be there that we used to play on.
Okay, Councilmember Gregory, I'll have to check into that. I've lived in Charleston a long time, but maybe I don't remember this as well as I should, but I can go back and check into something like that. And see what was there and why it's not there now and what we could possibly do. I'd be happy to check into that.
I mean, a part of it probably is integration, because During that time, people were confined to certain areas. And that was the court that most of us used and played on. Although I went to the other tennis courts near the Citadel and played eventually, but for the most part, we were on those asphalt courts.
Okay.
So if you can check it,
I'd be happy to check into that for you, sir.
because it would even be a good space for pickleball.
Yes, it would. I mean, if you've been down to Martin Park lately where we've got MLK Pool, which is
Yes.
in Mitchell's district, those two little pickleball courts that have been redone down there on that corner has brought in a whole new group of park users. And they're always down there. So it's a great thing to have positive recreation going on in some of these areas like that.
I think this might give us an opportunity to do that. So if you take a look at it, I really would appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So Laurie, if I may add, and Lord knows I appreciate your steadfastness at keeping a good, tight budget. And I understand the bigger part of the budget is for salaries rather than stuff. But, I'm just thinking back at a few conversations over the last few months, like where we had talking about dragging the fields, and maybe we could have volunteers to do it. But, then even if you found the volunteers, we don't have extra dragging equipment, whatever it is you use to drag the field,
Yes, sir.
Or sometimes when I hear back from a parent that well, gee, they had the time, but we ran out of bases, or we didn't have any more balls, or just simple basic tools of the trade, so to speak, or basic equipment, like that not only our staff but a squeegee, a request to squeegee off a wet basketball court, and we don't have an extra squeegee around. Please put a little. You may have added a little to your budget for stuff like that, but let's be attentive that if we need some everyday supplies like that we don't miss out on volunteers and activities because we didn't have some of those basic things.
Absolutely, sir. I did ask for some additional supply and equipment money that would allow us to do more. Our Parks Department is so spread out and has so many things that they're trying to keep up with and do. So we did ask for some dollars that would allow us to help with volunteers and using our rec staff and places to do that. So yes, sir, we'll make sure we do that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other, did we cut you off? Did you have more?
The other portion was on the golf course.
Okay.
I believe Marshall should be on this call. I asked him to be, but their dollar numbers are pretty small as well. So he's not asking for a whole lot out of his budget either. But I believe Marshall's on this call, aren't you, Marshall?
I made it to it.
Good.
Hey, Marshall. How
Took
you
me a
doing?
while. How are y'all?
We're doing well.
Yeah, the only things, well, nothing really substantial here. What this is a program that we went through with this year that's offset with entry fees. It's called Operation 36. It's a golf instruction based program that's engages people through the app and gives Boykin a channel of communication to all the students. So we have figured out how much we need to charge on an entry basis or how much we need to allocate to it, and it'll offset plus some. But should amount to some revenue yearly, but we put it in here officially for next year. Transportation is just minor back and forth. Personal vehicle transportation is all that is.
Gotcha. I'll just note to council members that the bathrooms and the crosswalk that we're hopefully finally going to see in 2024 are covered in other budgets.
We still naming those after you, Mr. Mayor, calling them the John.
We're going to have one of them, please call it John.
All right.
Mayor, I'd like to add too that I know in the last at least year or so, Marshall and his staff been spending a lot of time talking about online registration and some of the things that limits being able to do that with our current system. Marshall is working on an RFP with procurement that we're close to having go out that would allow him to try to solicit folks to put in proposals to do on an online registration program that would better serve our golfers and the community. So we are working on that outside of this budget as well.
Good. All right. And Marshall, you know, you can ask for anything else you need from the Friends of the Muni, right?
I'm on it. They're helping out with various projects throughout the year. We're about to add some signage out on the range at kind of targets, but they're a little more engaging when you hit them. It's like a steel drum, makes the noise, engages the kids, and I mean, really everyone. We've tried it in various ways, but we're going to put some signage out there, get some sponsorship opportunities through them. They're helping kind of redo the artificial turf area of the range tee and keep the traffic dialed in just on that area. We've had some issue with people veering off of it and damaging the turf around it. So they're helping with that. All amounts to about $10,000 that they've done here in the last few weeks.
Right, thank you. So while I see you and Laurie and Wes on the call at the same time, did we work out whatever we needed to get that range ball dispenser machine working?
We're close, Mayor. We've been working with Mallory in legal, and she's been, we've gotten something back to the company that has the credit card reader for that machine, and they are making their final comments. So we're very close to getting that wrapped up. We've gotten a lot of work done since our last golf course commission meeting, thanks to Mallory and Marshall.
Great, excellent, thank you. All right, any other questions for Laurie or Marshall on recreation or the golf course, anybody? Thank you. So thank you, Laurie, for that report and presentation. Thank you, Marshall. And next up is our IT.
Thank you all for your time.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Wes.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Mayor, I've got 45 items and most of them are over 5,000. So I don't know if you want to raise the bar for mine or.
Yeah, we'll raise the bar for yours a little bit. I don't have a number in my mind, but.
All right, I'll just step through these quickly, and if somebody has a question, please jump in. We do have a lot of items. We received, I think, the most requests from police and fire for IT elements this year that we've had in a while, so that definitely added to the total budget. And obviously, there's always a lot going on from an IT perspective in terms of the technology put out there as we support all the other departments. So we try to keep up with that, and then of course stay ahead of risk and dangers from a cybersecurity standpoint. So we're always looking at that. But as Laurie touched on, this is my 19th budget, and we always try to do due diligence when we are looking at what we want to implement. The cost, we don't always go with the cheapest solutions because that can cause its own problems in terms of longevity, supportability, and how well it functions. But we do try to be cost effective and pay close attention to that. So hopefully that's been noticed in my track record, but I'll go through these and please ask questions as we go along. Over the past couple of years, we've been hitting different departments with upgrades in their primary conference rooms, and as well as major meeting spaces, the public meeting room here, city council chambers, other locations. So we try to hit a couple of these years to spread the cost. Most of this technology we put in place 2015 to 2010, so it's aging out. A lot of technology advances, so we're doing that next year for a couple of spaces, particularly the Parks conference room, where they do a lot of their meetings. And of course, with all the virtual meetings that are going on these days, this has become more and more important. So that's going to be something we're kind of doing a little bit of each year. Next item, public engagement platform. That was something requested by planning and business and neighborhood services. We've had some various resources for this in the past, Constant Contact, the Notify Me on our website, but they're very limited and sort of siloed in how they function. And it's created some challenges for how some of the departments, particularly these, notify people, communicate with them, interact with them outside of just basic email. So this is something that they zeroed in on this year that we reviewed briefly with them, what they're requesting to implement going forward.
Okay.
Next item, we're doing some MEOC upgrades. We had a phase one this year that handled the bulk of it. This finishes up some of the smaller elements on the administrative side. Some TVs that they have for looking at the news and weather reports. It ties into the master system that we upgraded this year. So that just completes that project. Everything we've got over there now, we put in when the building was built in 2015. We've had some equipment failing, but it's just been worn out because it gets used heavily for both emergency management scenarios as well as regular meetings related to city operations. So some of this is overdue for replacement. So you can scroll down, please. And we've got some grant software that BFRC requested to advance what they've been using to date. Next item, agenda management system. I think as you all know, we attempted the implementation of a new system this year. Had a perfect storm there with vendors buying out the product we had purchased, two different occasions of that, as well as, I guess you'd almost say, false advertisement. The system we bought did not do everything we needed it to do. With the vendor ownership transition, we ran into some serious problems with customer service. And I think Jennifer can attest to how poorly that went and the struggles they had with the system we had purchased. So we kind of punted on that system, and we'll be looking at implementing a different system early part of next year. We've already zeroed in on one or two that I think will be definite improvements and be effective solutions to putting in a good agenda management platform. Next item is additional security cameras for the Gearhart Center. We had built all of these in the original plan in 2014 and 15 when it was building, but a lot got cut to reduce cost. But we roughed in all the contact points for putting in more cameras later. We've had numerous issues and needs for cameras related to the GMC operations as well as our own with the docking bay on the Alexander side and also the other side of the building, and then entry into the lobby area. So we're looking at putting in 6 more cameras to facilitate that. Next item is continuing our electronic document management system. This is just some scanners. Phase 5 is the last phase. It says phase 6 there. That's just dealing with the scanner systems. Phase 5 kind of wrapped up a major implementation. So this is just scanners to finish that out and some components. Then the EDMS, the electronic document management system, what we call back scanning or outsourced scanning. We're doing a chunk of that every year for the departments. It's been very beneficial in getting everything digitized and into this electronic platform, getting rid of boxes and boxes and printed documents, clearing out storage space. So certainly a positive to continue that process.
So Wes, on that one, do you know, are we kind of catching up on a backlog, if you will, of large documents, and that becomes more of an in-house thing going forward at some point?
Yes, sir. We do as much on the front end now with new stuff ourselves. As we do it, we're doing it digitally. We have the CAD drawings, all of that. So all that starts out digitally. So that saves us from having to worry about this. Is strictly old stuff. So old engineering drawings. I think HR just sent over a half dozen large boxes of a lot of their old data from files and storage that needed to be digitized. So this is mainly dealing with the old stuff and catching up versus new and current stuff going forward. We tend to do all of that ourselves.
I see. All right, thank you.
And a lot of the old stuff is because of the size and the volume. They can do it better and quicker. We just don't have the physical resources in terms of equipment as well as the manpower to do a lot of that internally ourselves. There's just so much of it. Next three items are the computer hardware and software requests that we get individually, the smaller items from the various departments. You can see the breakdown on some of that that we get. IT first looks at all of that and will approve or deny those requests based upon known need or application. I'd say probably 80% we approve, and then the rest comes to city council to look at and the FRC. The next item, which we've tagged critical, this is expanding our server resources, all in the data center. We have virtualized everything through our virtual server systems and platforms. That still requires a back-end hardware support. So we have to put in the resources to manage that. We're constantly having more and more data growth that our end users are doing more and more, adding more and more software. So we have to try to keep up with that. We are backing that up. We have it in the cloud, where we have our core systems here that support a large function of that. So we have to keep up with that with the server resources. Next item, weather stations. That's stuff that we put in to support emergency management operations. So we're looking to put in, I think at least one more, possibly two more weather stations to all tie together. It also supports tourism with the carriage industry, and we're looking at those temperatures, monitoring that in the summertime. We use these when there's emergency management operations with storms, flooding, rainfall, and those kind of things. So looking at adding more to support our operations in that area. Next item, critical. This is part of our telecommunications system. We've moved over to voice over IP. This is in support of that and how we communicate through our desk phones and all the different city facilities. We've been able to cut costs in the process of doing this as we remove landlines, but it also requires the centralized resources, the call manager system, the voicemail support, and we've continued to grow. And this also supports us finishing up the final facilities that are putting in the voice over IP. The next item is just ability to better log our internet traffic and operations. We regularly get requests from HR, from department heads for employees when there's issues going on in terms of activity and behavior. This gives us the ability to look at that beyond a current 30-day period. Also helps us examine potential cybersecurity concerns if there's things we want to investigate. This expands our current capability to a longer period of time. Next item, public Wi-Fi. We are in the process of phasing out old equipment from a different vendor, putting in new equipment, standardizing on that. This covers everything from recreation facilities, where we've put in the public Wi-Fi on those locations, places like City Hall, other public meeting spaces that we have. So this continues to close out that process with the phase 2 to upgrade all of that equipment and do some expansion. The next item, this upgrades the IT training room, audio, video, the display board. The room we use is 20-seat room that we put in. We built the building. We train employees. This is used when we're training employees on new platforms like the ERP system that's going in. Other departments use it from time to time. Fire department, police department use this on a regular basis. It's a great resource, but we've worn out those resources in there, so we need to update that because it's starting to die on us. The next item is replacing some large plotter systems. These usually run about $25,000 a piece. The design center, capital projects, and planning, they use those heavily on a daily basis. They've reached the end of life in terms of usability, so that we can get those replaced before they completely die. We don't want to keep spending too much money on this kind of a sunk cost if we keep putting more and more money into these old platforms as they struggle to continue. So these are due for replacement. We do have some employee travel and training. A lot of this is related to education and certification for IT and GIS to maintain certs and to keep up with changing technology. So I think that's very important for some of our staff to be able to do that. GIS, that's their professional services. They've got a number of components in there related to their operations that allow them to present data to the city as a whole and the public related to orthography, the flights we have, the pictometry, and then the newer near map building outlines. This is used for building inspections, planning, police, fire, things that we respond to with FEMA. So all those platforms are important in our operations, and we continue to use those. Also includes our GIS platform renewal that we have. It's 100,000 plus for our enterprise agreement we have with Esri to keep that up and running as well. And then GIS also has our travel and training for their operations and their certifications. Professional services under telecommunications that increased a little bit, adding some software to improve our emergency capabilities there for notification across our voice over IP system. And then the next item, also telecommunications, that's our equipment side of that. Desk phones, also adding a couple more satellite phones for our emergency management operations. Next item, mobile data terminals as we get into public safety for our police department. Those are new additions. Each year we have a combination of new platforms. We've more or less caught up with the police department with putting in computers in all of their police vehicles. So at this point, it's just a handful of new additions if they're adding new units to the fleet that expands beyond what already has mobile data terminals, basically heavy duty laptops. So you'll have a few new units every year, and then the bigger piece of that are replacements. We have almost 400 MDTs now in the police department. We've moved to a 4-year rotation instead of 3 years since they're now static. They don't have to take them in and out and rotate those regularly, so the use and wear and tear is lower. So that allows us to save some money now to rotate those on a 4-year basis. So we're doing roughly 92 MDTs a year on the rotation side of that, which I think is just a little further down in our spreadsheet. The next item, not a lot of money there. I'll just skip that. That's just moving a platform from everything shifted to the cloud in terms of those operations. And then we have next item is some desktop replacements going to laptops for a number of police department personnel to increase their mobility and field work versus using desktops in the office. And then the last item on this page, forensic scanners. They are looking to put scanners around in specific locations to allow them to digitally transfer evidence via barcodes versus the current way of documented, written, and scanning in after the fact. Next item was something police department requested as a special kit, allows them to tap into Hyundai and Kia vehicles. That's evidently very technology specific, so they're trying to expand their capabilities to do this in the field when there's accidents, to plug into those vehicle computers to pull data. And then they're also asking for a mobile surveillance platform for work in the field for detectives, undercover operations. And then the next item is part of the safety and security camera system, looking at adding some more units in the field, particularly forward focusing. I believe this is the one for West Ashley. Yes, Daniel Island, James Island, Johns Island. So we've covered downtown pretty well, they feel like at this point. So this is going to expand into some other areas where they do not have as much camera coverage to expand that system. And they're also asking for an additional ALPR, automatic license plate reader system, to add to the couple that they have. And then the next item, I know Cassandra's on here, something she had specifically put in to expand or to support the Brigade Street warehouse upgrades. So they have a number of components there that are IT based as part of that. Okay. And then we move into the fire department, similar systems here. They are moving to a new RMS platform from what they're using now with county. So a good bit of front end expense to that, and then there'll be some annual recurring. It's a multi-phase process, as you can see there, up through phase 4, as they work through that expense, and then ultimately supposed to be offset by some savings as we collapse other systems into this new RMS. So they're projecting $105,000 savings over time once we get through phase 4 and implementing this new records and management system. And then the next item is Kronos Workforce Telestaff process. So this is currently a premise-based system that will move to the cloud and allow them to better manage what they're doing there with that platform in terms of its capability of managing their resources. And then they've got 3 items here that they're calling the start of a multi-year project that they're requesting. So hitting a number of stations each year, adding weather stations on each fire station, adding security cameras at each fire station, and adding access control at each fire station. So you can see the details there of those costs. So I imagine we will be seeing that each year for several years as they go through all the different fire stations. And then also, sort of part of that, they've identified some areas they want to place message boards. They particularly requested, in this case, for headquarters building, fire marshals, and memorial site to be able to put up message screens in those locations for displaying various information that they've got in mind. I have too many more details beyond that for that particular item. And then they've got their MDTs that they're requesting for a new hazmat vehicle, also shifting to iPads for MDTs in item 40 versus the larger laptops. And this is a new change that gives them a little more flexibility and space. It comes in at a cheaper price to do some of the same things they were doing with the larger products. And then they're also asking to update and replace their current investigative cameras that the fire marshals use in the field. They're currently basically just digital cameras. This will use a new form of that, a little higher than the product what they're using now if they're at certain use. And then scroll down in this last couple of items. I think as some of you may know, we have drone programs for the police and the fire department. IT is starting their program this year to support all the other departments. The fire department has had theirs for several years now, so they're looking at having to replace those. They've been using them heavily, along with some accessories and components as part of that replacement process. Then they're also asking for a new 360-degree digital camera, the special type of camera that allows you to do a full, probably seen as in real estate, online real estate videos, things like that. It takes a 360-degree video, allows you to have better presence in that viewing of that space, and something you wanted to implement. And then something they asked for last year that actually got cut. They're asking for again this year's, and follow suit with the fire department and the police department to implement body worn cameras for the fire marshals. I think that's it. Any questions I can answer at this time?
Is your nickname Santa Claus or something? Everybody's asking you for all kinds of stuff, aren't they?
I tend to accuse departments of that on a regular basis. Yes, sir.
So I hadn't heard of the request for the body cameras for fire marshals. This is when they're out in the field, I presume, doing an investigation. When would the protocol be? That's probably a question for Chief Courier, not for you. But we'll ask the fire department to weigh in what the protocol or when they're looking to activate body cameras on fire marshals.
Yes, sir. Just the brief discussions I have with them on that, it would pretty much be anytime they're in the field working. So whether it's inspecting a site or they're doing, at a business doing some work and they encounter any problems there, it just gives them video record of what's going on, or if they are investigating a fire site where there was a fire and fire damage in the place in case there's a problem. Accident.
Gotcha. All right, any questions for Wes and these seemingly most all good IT requests? Council members, looks like you're good to go, Wes. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. I know it's a job to keep up with all those requests and then get them installed when the new year comes around. So thanks for all the support you give all our departments.
Yes, sir. Our pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Wes.
All right, next up, we got public service, Tom O'Brien.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. I'd also like to start off by thanking Corey Carlson and Andrew for their consistent support in helping us prepare our budget. Most of our budget is the high dollar items that we all know are in our vehicles, our equipment for like as garbage trucks and our knuckle booms and things of that nature, which are covered in another meeting. But this, I'm going to go over our line item requests here, and some of them are very crucial to our success in our day-to-day operation of keeping our fleet moving. So our first item is we want to replace 2 AC refrigerant machines. So these machines are very old. We've had them for about 14 years, and they're very crucial in our operations as far as testing and repairing air conditioning for most of the fleet. So we really need to get those items replaced, and they're really kind of, in the scheme of things, pretty inexpensive to do that. So we would like to do that. Our second priority was to a new position, which is automotive electrical tech position. And this position would be a new position we'd like to add as we've increased some of the technology in our fleet, such as cameras on our garbage trucks and different things like that, GPSs and things like that. It will assist us greatly to have an in-house ability. Right now, we have to rely on the radio shop and some of the other people in sending stuff out. If we could have a technician in-house to diagnose, make repairs, and install and remove that type of equipment, it'll just make us a more efficient operation. So we feel it'd be a very, very good use of a new position in our fleet operations. Third thing we have is we'd like to put in there is the renovation of our building inspections office here at 2 George Street. The way these offices were laid out is we've changed the way we work with workstations and things of that. This is just some things we looked at doing this last year, but we really could not do it, and we spent some monies upstairs on the second floor in engineering and stormwater renovating some of those offices. So this is something we'd really like to look at this year. The next priority item we have is the purchase of another glutton machine. The gluttons, which we purchased 2 of them for King Street, has really worked great in our central business district. And Matt has requested the operational ability to place another one in the market area, which we all know is a very another crucial area for heavy foot traffic and tourists. And so we just want to really, they're amazing machines, and it's amazing to watch these things work, and they really are helping us keep our sidewalks clean. I think we've done a really good job. It helps us, as the mayor knows. A lot of stuff sometimes, off the sidewalks kind of stuffs into the gutters. This allows us to keep those gutter areas clean too. And we think it would make a really huge difference in helping our market look the same nice clean area as we have in the on the King Street area. Next item we have is we want to have 2 track cameras for our building inspections department to help us track crawl spaces and this would assist not only in inspections, but also when we do in flood inspections and things post storms and events like that, will give us the ability. Some of these crawl spaces are difficult to allow people to get safely in. These cameras allow us the ability to check those spaces and get in there. So that's something we really like to do. The next 2 items in our budget are dealing with professional certifications and employee travel and training. And those are spread out over all of our divisions. And as we know, our inspectors, especially in building inspections, we're always trying to get certified in certifications, and we want to become cross-trained, which makes us more efficient in our operation. Instead of having to send multiple inspectors, we can send 1 inspector to a site, and they can do all the inspections. It really makes us little bit better and more efficient in our operation. Next, we have the increase in our pavement management. This is for sidewalk repairs and installation, and that's something we're just trying to get back to. I think Matt told me our pre-COVID levels of funding on that, so that's what we're trying to do there. After that, a couple years ago, we had a grant for a mattress recycling program, and Matt's online. He can maybe help us a little bit with the numbers, but that was very successful. And Matt, do you recall the number of mattresses we collected during that year?
I want to say that we take 10 loads up to the recycling facility, and there's probably 30 or 40 mattresses in each load.
So that was really, and that's something which, working with Katie McCain, who does a great job with our resiliency operation here in the city. We're just trying to think something if we can possibly reinstitute that program to help us. I see Councilmember Seekings has his hand up if we can answer a question.
Councilmember Seekings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Tom. I just have a quick question. I'm going to talk about sidewalk and sidewalk repair. Do
Yes,
you
sir.
keep an ongoing list that sort of tells you where you are against the request vis-a-vis your timing on it? What's the backlog on it?
Councilmember Seekings, the actual sidewalk request list for repairs, we have new requests and also repairs, and it's really two separate lists, correct, Matt? Isn't that right? How we keep them separate like that?
Yeah, we have new sidewalk requests, and then we have work orders that come in via GovQA that we work through as they come through.
Fine.
And then the random calls from people like me, council members,
Yes,
so
sir.
asking you to look at it.
Yes.
Anything like that that comes up, and we will create a work order and add it in.
And one quick follow-up, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. I mean, I take it some of those repairs, as opposed to the new builds, are some shared jurisdictions. I mean, do we have a way to, if we have to go out and do a repair and it's clearly like a utility issue, that we can sort of go back and account for that and seek reimbursement, or how does that work?
I can respond to that, council member.
What was the question again? I'm sorry, Tom, I couldn't clearly hear.
He was asking about some of the repairs are necessitated by faulty utility work and things of that nature, and we have a way of going back on them. All utility work in the right of way is supposed to be done under a utility permit, which gives us an ability to track who's doing that work. If we find, and each repair has to be guaranteed for 1 year after the completion and closeout, we send our inspectors out after the permit time has been, we get a request for a final inspection for a utility repair. So we go out and check, and if we then find any fault or deficiencies in that, we will follow actually out with the utility company to make them go back and additionally make the repair again.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir. We were talking about the mattress recycling. The next thing we had is a dump trailer for our streets and sidewalks department. This will
By
help
the way,
us.
Tom, thank you. I lost my ability to unmute myself, so thank you for that answer. Super helpful. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Next, we have a dump trailer for our streets and sidewalks department to help them transport materials to and from the job sites. We also could use that. Sometimes we need to have topsoil in some locations when we do some work, so that will help us do that. The next item is kind of an interesting item, which we've talked about. Matt and I were, I think at a trade show, Matt was a small concrete truck, which does not require a CDL license. And what we would like to do is potentially purchase this small truck. And Matt, you want to just talk real quickly about what the costs are and how difficult it is for us to get concrete sometimes for our small concrete repairs?
Yeah, so if we don't buy 5 yards or more, then we get charged a small load fee, a fuel surcharge, and we're paying $150 per yard. This truck will allow us to get rid of the fuel surcharge, to get rid of the small load fee, and to lower what we're paying per yard to 120. It'll save us money over the course of the truck, of the lifespan of the truck. It's just something that we looked into, without being able to have a CDL driver. Small load fees are killing us right now, because a lot of our projects are less than 5 yards, and it doesn't pay for us to rip up 5 yards if it doesn't need it. So we're looking to come up with a solution to help with some of that.
In addition, sometimes when we have these small pours, we just can't get concrete, and we will do a tear out and get everything prepared to re-pour, and it'll be a day or two delay, which presents an unsafe condition for our citizens and people walking the streets. So this will allow us to be able to make these repairs in a real quick, more efficient manner. Next, we have a couple items, and these are all of our divisions combined together of uniforms and protective clothing and small hand tools, which kind of speak for themselves. Then we have some minor cost items which we don't need to cover. So we flip over, we go to inspections. Amy, we're on number 24 now, if you want to kind of just in case, but all those other ones were less than 5,000. And that item there is sometimes we have to retain engineering services for structural and things of that nature. And this allows us to hire structural engineers when we have questions. We do not have the ability on staff for our building inspections, our engineering department to do structural estimates and what to work. So this allows us to have that type of work. Advertising, which takes place for just different items under the inspections, environmental services items for holidays and things of that, ads for those type ads. And the final items we have, which are over the $5,000 limit, the mayor talked, are just we have some vendor leases for some copiers. We have one other additional, actually two more items for the garage, which are a tire changer and a wheel balancer. And our final item, which is kind of a big ticket item for us, is just the overtime that we have and the ability to make our collections in environmental services. And I'd be happy to answer, Matt, and I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Any questions, anyone? Well, you know me, I'll ask one. Tom and Matt, I know you had that item, I think, to get the sidewalk repairs back to pre-COVID levels. Is this repairs only, and does it include the contract services that y'all have, those standing contracts with a few companies?
Yeah, this would get us back to pre-COVID levels. So that is for sidewalk repairs only. Since concrete has gone up, we've gone through the 100,000 that we were allotted this year, and are having to work south of Broad a little bit more than we normally would, because we are running out of money.
Mayor, this is more for in-house work that we do with our crews versus the contract work we do, like with Wildwood or landscape pavers for some of the major ones, to try and remove some of the requests we have for new sidewalks in some of our older neighborhoods and areas like that. So this is more for in-house repairs.
Yeah. So I would respectfully say that our pre-COVID levels weren't enough either.
Yes, sir.
So, we got a lot of sidewalks in the city, all parts of the city. Of course, this doesn't really cover, new projects. We know we have some capital project funding for that, and we apply for county and CTC funds and all these other things. But it just seems to me you might need to bump that up even more based upon the lists that we have and some of the challenges we have with the linear miles of sidewalks and the age of some of them, et cetera. So
I would not disagree with that, sir. I think that's probably, we'll get with Amy and Andrew and Corey and maybe see what we could really look that would be a good number for us to put in there.
thank you. All right.
I will say, Mayor, one other thing I'd like to say too is once again, thanks to you and the council members, I approved again today 3 more driver positions for our drivers in environmental services and streets and sidewalks, and the ability for us to be able to hire drivers with Brandon Sotts assistant, our new environmental services superintendent, has just been tremendous. And Matt, I think with those hires today, I think we're only like 2 driver positions vacant in the whole department. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's down to 2 or 3. I'll have to check. I haven't been there this week to see, but I want to say that with these 3, we should only have 2 positions left.
And that's just remarkable. And it makes our job so much easier. And as y'all all the ones who get the calls and complaints when we have pickups, we're finishing everything on time. Our routes are finished on time. And it's also helping us with our overtime because of our ability to get things done in an efficient manner. So just like to express our thanks for your ability to help us make those hires.
Thank you for filling them. That's great. So you get some extras, send them over Matt Fountain's way.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Matt.
Yes, sir.
Back to Amy. You want to run us through our monthly reports?
Sure. Sorry, so general fund expenditures, you can see that all departments except mine again are under target. And we've explained why. So far every single month that will get bigger and bigger, by the way. My mouse is going a little crazy, so I'm sorry. Goodness gracious. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. So again, except for me, but we have the revenue there, so we'll transfer that in. All the other departments are under target operationally, with the exception of recreation, but we've talked about that too. It's because they have their increased participation in their programs. So there's revenues to cover those additional costs. So it's nothing to be worried about. You want me to go back here so you can look at that again? If my mouse would
Just
cooperate with me.
Just for a minute, yeah. Any questions on that, anyone?
And Amy, this is through when?
August 31st.
Through August 31st. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then that's just the graph that we show you to where the targets are, the gold lines, and then where we actually are.
Okay.
Revenues are looking good. Rents and concessions are the one that's still under target, but we still think that's a timing issue. But everything else is over target.
The property taxes, would that just be a function of people paying early, or that we're getting more tax revenue than you anticipated?
It's probably, it's more than we anticipated. That's mostly motor vehicles, Mayor.
Yeah.
Permit fees are still tracking over target, which, you know, we were worried about those a little bit earlier. In the year, we did note that a lot of that is planning permits. So that could indicate that there's obviously more construction on the horizon. So we did notice that. One thing I did want to bring to your attention is local option sales tax is under target. We've been watching that for the last few months, and it's not performing as well as we thought it would. We had to set our millage and tax credit factor for 2023. We had to send all that into the county. We budgeted a tax credit factor of 0.0092, which is where we left it. But it is a little bit less than what our actual tax credit factor was in 2022 by just a little bit. But where we estimate will be in revenues at the end of the year, we felt like we needed to lower that tax credit factor a little bit.
Gotcha.
Any questions on that? No, it's just Charleston County too. I will say that Berkeley County's local option sales tax is doing really well, but Charleston County is the one that's under target from what we expected. And enterprise funds are all looking really good. All of them are over target right now. So no issues there. city market has rebounded back. We were watching them for a little bit, which we thought mostly was because of the capital project that was going on, but they seem to have turned around. Any questions on enterprise funds?
Everybody good?
And then stormwater is looking good. Like we said, we delayed the start in the dollar increase, but that's been leveling out. But we did note that other permits and fees are tracking slightly under target.
Okay.
Any questions? Okay, and then expenditures are well under target as well. Tourism funds. This is where we are. We're over target in all of the categories. Well, in them all together, but we are noticing with municipal accommodations tax and state accommodations tax, they're lagging behind our targets a bit. So we're watching that as well, with local option sales tax being under target and those two accommodation tax revenue sources. We're just watching that. We'll take that into consideration when we're budgeting for 2024, because again, that could indicate that we're having a bit of a slowdown. Hospitality, however, is performing above target and does not show any sign of a problem at all. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. And that's basically what I just said was we're just watching both the accommodations taxes and we'll be a little bit more conservative in our 2024 budgets for those two revenue sources. And then
I think the average daily rate has moderated just a little bit over last year, come down a little bit, so that might have been an impact.
I think the rooms sold have also decreased as well, based on what we received, right, Rick? Yeah, they're down from last year as well, so.
Yeah.
So just where we are with 2024 budget, our next meeting next week, we'll hear from Parks and the police department on their requests. And then in October, we'll start looking at revenues and go through all the department requests like we do, and then discuss what we might want to do for a COLA or pay plan adjustment.
Gotcha.
And then that's it. If anybody has any other questions.
Any questions, comments?
Thank you, Amy.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? All
Thank
right.
you.
Any
All right.
any
Everybody
other-
have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Any other business? We stand adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
Yep, thanks.